had a grandparent moment yesterday. My friend Amy is a new mom, and she was showing me little pictures of little cherub and stuff. And then she asked about my grandkids, and I was showing the pictures. That's what we do, right? We're proud mom and dads, grandma, grandpas, happy. These young little innocent lives, though, like Amy's brand new little baby girl. This little tiny round cheek, little squishy little cherub. Can't speak, drools all over the place, can't nothing for herself, can't feed herself, can't get herself to the bathroom. Like she's a little baby. The cutest, sweetest little thing. As they grow, they turn demonic. We know that, but just kidding. It feels like it sometimes. But really, as parents, sometimes our emotions just spill over when we get upset. And it can, not for everybody, but sometimes it can become abusive, emotionally abusive. And, boy, that's got to be a tough one. And is that generational? Does that make you then, because it's what you know? I don't know. I know a guy who knows this kind of stuff. His name is Dr. John Braccio, and every Tuesday joins us about now from Regional Psychological Services East Lansing. Doc Braccio, welcome. How's it going?
It's always good to talk to you, my friend. And this is, I think, a really important topic because of the impact it can have negatively on people, and it can go for generations. But parental emotional abuse is one of the hardest things for persons to get over in their lifetimes. Now, I've always been of the belief that children do not ask to come into the world. They deserve to be loved and cared for. Anything less is really bad parental behavior. Actually amazes me there are parents who are more worried about how their children inconvenience them rather than making them their priority, seemingly unaware of the emotional problems this causes their children if they ignore them or treat them badly. And if you add to that a person has a belief in God, that the child really was sent as a gift to you,
yeah,
then really the wrong and not loving and caring for the child can said to be even a greater sin because you're offending God. Now, something else you mentioned there earlier, an additional major problem is an estimated 30% or more of persons who were emotionally abused often carry on these practices with their own children. So it really can go on and on and on. That the percentages are not higher is a positive factor in an otherwise very horrible life situation for the adult children who were emotionally abused as children. Now, typical emotional outcomes for adult children who suffer parental emotional abuse, can include low self-esteem, extreme anxiety, severe depression, difficulty trusting others, not being able to maintain close relationships due to this lack of trust, severe and inappropriate anger, then groveling and seeking support from the abusive parents later in life who never will give it, feelings of severe worthlessness, intense need to control whatever aspects of their life they can, surrounding themselves with abusers because they are the only type of persons they're used to, believing they deserve to be abused, living with an often brutal internal critic, that is the person inside them who is always putting them down, isolation from persons due to fear of rejection and abuse, problems of substance abuse, and a tendency to self-destruction. So this really can cause a lot of havoc for a person. To experience even a few of these emotional outcomes can lead to a very difficult life. Now, it's obviously very difficult for persons to overcome these outcomes when we look at the person suffering from them. The first thing someone needs to do who has the symptoms is to recognize the problems they're experiencing. They then need to seek out friends and family who they can trust to help them overcome the beliefs they have and find ways to begin leading what can be called a relatively normal lifestyle. Often a trained therapist can be helpful. The emotional havoc caused by past parental emotional abuse can really make life very difficult, Mike. And the point to remember is that the current emotional havoc will take a time for you to overcome and heal. As Rome itself wasn't built in a day, as the old saying goes. It will be a process of getting to a point where you're in control of your life and free from the effects of toxic parents and people who have and do cause you emotional havoc. So the road may be long and hard, but the efforts are really worth peaceful and happy life for you. So In a few words, it can really be tough. If you sure you know persons that just don't care and love for themselves and have just a lot of self-criticism, and often they come from homes where parents never cared, they abandoned them, they emotionally abandoned them, they're fault finders, they can never get their approval. So it can be a tough life. And if you have these feelings and you just even think you deserve them, but all of a sudden you're thinking, hey, maybe it's time I do start getting a new look on myself and make some changes and not allow the past to destroy my present. So my view is if you feel that way, you've got to start changing. You've got to start moving forward. You've got to start using positive self-talk. You've got to replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts. And you've got to realize you're a good human being and you deserve to be treated fairly. And you've got to detox from your life people that really don't treat you well, including your parents are certainly setting a different standard for them in terms of the level of interaction you're going to have. Tough situation for persons that have been through this emotional abuse with non-caring parents.
I can imagine getting on your end. I mean, I'm obviously I'm not trained or anything, but I can imagine on your end when someone comes to you with, say, low self-esteem problems, and it's to the point where they have to come to you because it's affecting their life, or what have you. Maybe after you start peeling those layers back, you do end up with that maybe stuff they didn't even realize as kids they were emotionally abused.
A lot of times people just kind of accept their role in life. They just kind of believe that's the way they are, and they're intimidated by their parents. Even as they're older, even adults, they still are looking for their approval, and they never get the approval. And a lot of times, if you have narcissistic parents that just focus on themselves, then, anything that bad happens in their life is because of you. Here you are trying to survive and lead a life, and can impact all the relationships you're in because you get used to thinking if you have low self-esteem that you deserve to be around people that will take advantage of you. And in fact, there are plenty of people out there that are more than ready to take advantage of you. Unfortunately, that's part of human nature. So if you really have this emotional havoc in your life now, and it doesn't matter how old you are, you can be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, it really doesn't matter. But if you carry these feelings and carry guilty that I haven't done enough, I'm not good enough, in spite of being exemplary, then it really is, it's going to be havoc for you. And you have to really get to the point where you acknowledge it. Because a lot of times people have trouble acknowledging it. They'll say, well, I don't do enough. I deserve to be treated badly. I'm not a good person. Golly, you're waiting for the Pope to come and canonize them as a saint. And there they are thinking they're a sinner. So it is kind of a sad thing to watch. But again, if people just can turn the thought, I am a good person. I'm trying to be a good person. I'm going to have to kind of take a time out from this whole thing and try to find people that are supportive, be around people that are supportive. Therapists can be helpful. Certainly it could be spiritual. It could be a priest, minister. Just every person is different, but they have to find their road. And again, as the saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day, and you just don't get over this overnight, because that internal critic was often in place, that was put in there by your parents, whether intentionally or inadvertently, that you're not good enough. You don't deserve a good life. And you deserve problems, and you do more for me. You haven't done enough, and you don't care. And it just amazes me, Mike, how people that really are so good, do so many good things, feel they're not good enough because it was ingrained in them as children. And even when you see a parent, adult, much older parents, still complaining about the children, what they're not doing, you see it, you kind of go, wow. Sometimes we just get used to it. We just say, oh, well, that's kind of the way it is. But if you're in that situation, it can be really, really a very tough life. And then the fact that 30% or more, and they start behaving that way with their children.
Well, that's what I was going to say, as a therapist, how often do you get, and obviously you can't reveal anything here this way, but how often have you gotten, you get people in and they have one emotional problem or this or that, and you peel back, like I said, the layer of the onions, and you find out their parents acted a certain way, and then their parents acted that way because their parents acted that way, and it's generational. How often? That seems like that would be pretty much
Very
every
often.
time.
But not necessarily every time, but very often, because a lot of abused children, emotionally abused children, there are obviously a lot of types of abuse, but emotionally abused children, their parents were often abused themselves. They don't know any different. They're negative. They can be destructive, and they then carry that out. That becomes that's what they're used to, and that's what they do. And anger, there's a lot of anger with persons who are emotionally abused, and so it carries on. It can carry on for generations, just like anxiety, just like good behaviors. People that are stable, try to raise their children stable, set up stable environments, they are far more likely to have stable children. But if you grew up in a place that love was really lacking, it was emotionally very havoc, difficult for you, you were never told how good you are, you were told how wrong you were, it's easy to pick those things up and you become negative. You all of a sudden start using those same strategies. And then, part of it is obviously those that take in all the negativity and believe it and become a doormat and overrun. But then there's this other group, the group that when they live in that environment, they pick up those skills, unfortunately. They become a negative, destructive person, just like their parents were. And they may even say, well, that's the way I was raised. I didn't come out that bad. And all of a sudden you're thinking to yourself, wow, this is a tyrant. He doesn't think he came out or she came out that bad. So it's human nature can be a very complicated thing, and there are good and bad parts. So when you get these bad things happening to you and you live through it through emotional abuse, you do run the risk of yes, you can become the abuser yourself, or you can become a doormat too. So it's a difficult thing to deal with. Mike, life can get very, very complicated. And if the emotional havoc from coming from a home where you were emotionally abused can really, really, really be tough.
It's a tough thing. I mean, because you got that side, and then you got the other pendulum swings completely the other way, where everything your daughter or son does or says, the very air you breathe is angelic. Oh, you're so perfect. Oh, then you overgo the other way.
Oh, that's a whole other topic, Mike.
Yeah. Maybe we do that one next week. We go this week and this way, and then that.
The golden damsel and how they become destructive to everybody around them.
Yeah. All right, Doc. Well, we're up on time, and this is a very interesting topic. And I dare say, sometimes people, they may wonder about themselves. Why isn't anything working out for me? Why is it this way? You get some help. Call Doc Braccio's people at Regional Psychological Services, because you need, I always say it this way, sort of a Sherpa guide through the emotional jungle of life. And you're not going to get to it on your own. I doubt it. I mean, maybe it's possible. You think someone can weed their way through this type of stuff on their own?
Well, listen, in life, we're always trying to function the best we can, and sometimes people can help us do that. The main thing is to first recognize, I have a problem here. Like the internal critic or the low self-esteem or the accepting abuse, these types of things we have to say these are wrong, and then try to build a system to overcome it, Mike. It becomes really important. Yeah.
Dr. John Braccio, always is a pleasure. This time it's very interesting stuff. Well, maybe we go the other way the next time around, but I'll leave that up to you. You're the doc. Dr. John Braccio, Regional Psychological Services. Dr. John B. on the internet.
Good talking to you, buddy.
Take care. Have a great day. Good to see you. 1320 WILS.